As reported in the Holy Bible, Israel occupies a significant place in religious history. Jacob's physical descendants are considered a special people in the eyes of God. The scriptures contain passages that speak of God's ongoing commitment to this community. Although Israel has faced challenges and adversity throughout history, God promises to protect and preserve this nation. This is remarkable, especially considering the long history of persecution against the Jews, a sad chapter in human history. In this context, we invite you to explore 7 stories in the Bible in which God intervened to protect Israel. Additionally, we have videos on our channel that highlight these miracles. We invite you to watch them. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to receive updates on future episodes. Let's start. First miracle: the passage through the sea and the defeat of the Egyptian army. As described in the Bible, Israel remained in Egypt for 430 years. Over time, the Hebrews grew in number, which generated concerns among the Egyptians, leading them to persecute God's chosen people. God heard the cries of the Hebrews and sent Moses to lead them to the promised land of Canaan. The Pharaoh, however, refused to let so many slaves leave, fearing the impact on Egypt's economy. Faced with this resistance, God sent 10 plagues that not only afflicted the Egyptians, but also challenged the Egyptian gods, demonstrating God's superiority. Eventually, God's people were freed and began their journey toward the promised land. However, Pharaoh changed his mind during the journey and decided to pursue the Israelites into the desert. The Hebrews found themselves at the edge of the waters of the Red Sea, with a vast Egyptian army quickly approaching to capture them. There seemed to be no way out. At this critical moment, a miracle occurred. The waters parted, allowing the Hebrews to cross safely. The Egyptian army tried to follow, but God caused the waters to close, destroying the entire Egyptian army. Second miracle: the confrontation with the people of Amalek. The people of Amalek became a symbol of Israel's adversaries. Before entering the promised land, the Hebrews faced several battles. The Battle of Rephidim, as narrated in the Bible, was a conflict between the Israelites and the Amalekites that took place in Rephidim. As the Israelites advanced toward the promised land, the Amalekites launched an unprovoked attack against them. God called the Israelites to face this threat. This battle marked the beginning of several clashes over hundreds of years between the Amalekites and the Israelites. Moses urged the people to fight and placed Joshua as leader of the troops. During the battle, Moses held the rod of God, which symbolized divine support. The biblical narrative also mentions that Moses became exhausted, and his close relatives, Aaron and Hur, supported him by holding his hands. The fighting continued until nightfall, culminating in the Israelites' victory. Third miracle: the conquest of Jericho. Jericho, considered one of the oldest cities in the world, represented a barrier to Israel's entry into the promised land. The defeat of Jericho was crucial to the survival of the Israelite people in the land, but the city was known as impregnable. Israel did not have an army with the ability to traditionally carry out sieges and conquer cities. Therefore, God had to intervene and demonstrate his power. God ordered the Israelites to march around the walls of Jericho once a day for 6 days, with the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant. On the 7th day, they circled the city 7 times. Then the priests blew their trumpets, and the Israelites uttered a loud shout. As a result, the city's imposing walls collapsed, allowing Israel to conquer Jericho. Fourth miracle: Gideon's victory over the Midianites. Gideon, son of Joaz of the tribe of Manasseh, lived in Ephraim at a time when the Israelites were in a vulnerable situation and suffered frequent attacks from other nations. There was no king or unified nation. The Midianites were one of the recurring enemies that attacked Israel. God chose Gideon to lead the people against this constant threat. Gideon gathered an army, uniting members of different tribes of Israel. However, God instructed Gideon that the number of men he had gathered was excessive. Through a series of selections, God reduced Gideon's army to just 300 men. One night, God ordered Gideon to approach the Midianite camp, where Gideon heard a Midianite recounting to a friend a dream in which barley bread rolled through the enemy camp, causing the destruction of the camp. This was interpreted as a sign that God would hand the Midianites over to Gideon. Gideon returned to the Israelite camp and distributed embatas, shofares, and clay jugs with torches hidden for each of his 300 men. They were divided into 3 groups and, during the night, approached the enemy camp. Gideon instructed his men to blow the trumpets, give the war cry, and light the torches, creating the illusion of an attack by a large army. The Midianite army panicked and was defeated by Israel. 5th miracle: Jonah and the city of Nineveh. To demonstrate how God offers everyone, including Israel's adversaries, the opportunity to choose, let us consider the story of Jonah. Nineveh was considered a great rival of Israel, and God sent the prophet Jonah to announce its imminent destruction. However, something surprising happened in this narrative. The king of Nineveh and the entire nation sincerely repented. God, observing this change of heart, postponed his judgment and spared the city. Nineveh was preserved, and for a period, Israel did not suffer from Assyria. 6th miracle: King Hezekiah and the Assyrian threat. Peace did not last long, and in the 7th century BCE, a threat once again hovered over Israel. Assyria was not just an adversary of Judah. During this period, it became the first true empire. Assyria incorporated cultural, scientific, and religious elements from Babylon, particularly enhancing its military skills. It became a seemingly unbeatable force. Assyria had conquered the northern kingdom of Israel, destroying its cities and deporting the 10 tribes of Israel to distant lands. In this scenario, the kingdom of Judah, under the reign of King Hezekiah, faced the imminent threat of Assyria. The inhabitants of Jerusalem must have experienced great apprehension upon learning that the Assyrian army was approaching their city. The army of Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, had already conquered 46 fortified cities and was approaching Lachish. The brutality of the Assyrians was notorious, which only increased fear and anxiety among the people. 6th miracle: King Hezekiah and the Assyrian threat. Peace did not last long, and in the 7th century BCE, a threat once again hovered over Israel. Assyria was not just an adversary of Judah. During this period, it became the first true empire. Assyria incorporated cultural, scientific, and religious elements from Babylon, particularly enhancing its military skills. It became a seemingly unbeatable force. Assyria had conquered the northern kingdom of Israel, destroying its cities and deporting the 10 tribes of Israel to distant lands. In this scenario, the kingdom of Judah, under the reign of King Hezekiah, faced the imminent threat of Assyria. The inhabitants of Jerusalem must have experienced great apprehension upon learning that the Assyrian army was approaching their city. The army of Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, had already conquered 46 fortified cities and was approaching Lachish. The brutality of the Assyrians was notorious, which only increased fear and anxiety among the people. 7th miracle: the confrontation of Gog and Magog. The book of Ezekiel recounts a series of visions revealed to the prophet Ezekiel, a priest of Solomon's temple who was among the captives during the Babylonian exile. Ezekiel explains to his fellow captives that exile is the result of divine punishment on Israel due to their turning away from God, but that God will restore his people to Jerusalem when they turn to him. According to the prophecy contained in chapters 38 and 39 of the book of Ezekiel, in the distant future, when the Jewish people are living safely in Israel, Gog will invade the land, unleashing the wrath of God. The invaders will be defeated, and the Jews will dedicate months to burying the dead. Repeatedly, God emphasizes that through this conflict, the nations will recognize that I, the Lord, am holy in Israel. Ezekiel's prophecy promises the restoration of Jacob's descendants. The Jewish exiles will be reunited in their land, and the face of God will never again be hidden from the Jewish people. There are, of course, many other moving examples in the Bible where God intervenes to save the Hebrew people. but detailing them all would take too long. I hope you were moved by this episode. As always, I invite you to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel to stay up to date with upcoming episodes. Your constant support is what inspires me to keep going. Have a wonderful day and see you next time.